Hello and welcome to this player education video for CrickFit. In this short video, I will be explaining what PHV and maturation is and how we are aiming to help and educate players to try and reduce the number of growth-related injuries that are so common in an elite youth environment. Hope you'll find this useful and feel free to come back to this video at any time and feel free to contact me or Sam with any questions or concerns related to growth-related injuries and PHV. So, cricket development stages from the ages of 6 to 12. So what we want them to be doing at the ages of 6 to 12 is getting them moving, getting them active. We want them to be having fun with cricket and challenging them with different games and getting them to enjoy cricket and get a love of the sport. Kids during this age group are like sponges for information, whether that's learning in school or physical information via repetition or practice. Hence why it's such an important age group to deliver in order to develop a wide range of the physical literacy. Learning basic skills and movements, so introducing basic skills and movements for foundations or fundamental movement skills in order to then build upon later in that long-term athlete development. Playing and learning and having fun and building relationships as well. These play and building relationships in social settings is vital for development of the young brain, and it can also help improve movement, speed and strength at an early age. Then moving through to 13 to 16, it's a key age range for maturation and PHV, and it's a great time to perfect movements that are related to cricket. It's a perfect time to try and produce those awkward movements you may find around a cricket pitch, so fielding in awkward positions, trying to reach down and grab a ball, or trying to accelerate in awkward positions. And we do that by using awkward strength and really reproducing awkward movements. This is due to the adolescents getting used to their growing bodies, so their coordination is a little bit poorer in the PHV phase, just because they're getting used to their bodies. This is where bowling and batting techniques are developed in this stage, and you really start to see improvements in technique and physical development, especially towards the 14 to 16 stage, where they're really getting used to their bodies and they're really starting to mature. So also developing strength in key areas for batters and bowlers, such as key joints such as the ankles, the knees, hips and shoulders, just to try and reduce the risk of injury. Take fast bowling, for example. The load could be 5 to 10 times the bowler's body weight through their front foot contact. Therefore, strengthening around the key joints is also really important to try and reduce the risk of picking up injuries through load and growth-related injuries. Strengthening these joints will be able to accept force a lot easier, and also to express force a lot better. And then mastery, so 18 and over. This is where strength, speed and speed strength can really start to be developed, to be able to produce and express force quicker and more of that force in such a short period of time, also known as rate of force development. Keep developing functional strength to reduce the risk of injuries, like I said before, around key joints like the ankles and knees and hips that take a lot of load and a lot of stress. And we need to strengthen those so we can absorb force repeatedly. More difficult skills and lifts are mastered. So more difficult skills such as ball variations and mastering shots in a batter's repertoire, and also more complex lifts, for example, progressing squat variations to challenge neurological pathways and to also increase force production and force absorption. So what is PHV? It's the point of maximal adolescent growth, and it's called peak height velocity, or PHV. It is observed around the age of 12 to 13-year-old in girls and 13 to 14-year-old in boys. Growth rates are around 8 to 10 centimetres a year in boys and around 7 to 9 centimetres in girls. Following PHV, growth decelerates before adult height is attained, usually around the age of 18 in boys, and PHV is the second biggest growth spurt a person will undergo in their lifetime. Individuals may not reach their final height until their early 20s, and in this window for growth, there's lots of maturation changes, hormone changes, and it's a key time to learn different movements so they are competent with coordination and to be able to move more effectively. And why is it so important? So getting used to their bodies. They're not used to the growing limbs, and it takes a bit of time for them to understand how to move more efficiently. They may come across as uncoordinated and clumsy, but it's just part of them learning about their growing bodies and how to use them more effectively. Again, a great time to master movements. If the players are exposed to specific cricketing movements during this stage, then they'll be able to go and adapt to these movements. And if we can get them exposed to these complex movements throughout this PHV stage, then they should be able to move a lot smoother and quicker by the end of it. Preparing them for advanced gym movement, so in the next phase of cricket development, introducing more complex lifts, like I said before, and mastering key lift movements that will allow players to develop strength in key areas, and in order for them to continue developing physically. And also a need for strengthening key areas in order to cope with the demands of training and matches. Allowing teams to lift weights safely does not stunt growth. There is no scientific research whatsoever to say that a structured gym program will ever stunt growth. A common misconception that people might have heard, that getting someone in the gym too early or getting them lifting weights too early will stunt their eventual end height. So the benefits of a structured gym program: by allowing teams to follow a structured gym program that is considerate of load and metabolic stress, the players will benefit from lifting weights safely and improve functional strength. They'll also pick up key gym knowledge and tips to take into later life, which will be very useful in order to maintain a healthy lifestyle. So benefits from following this structured gym program: so an increased bone index. So what an increased bone index is how healthy your bones are and how strong they are. A good bone index will mean that there are at least less risk of getting bone diseases such as osteoporosis, and they're less likely to occur. This is why gym work is so important to carry on throughout later stages of life as well. Decreasing the risk of bone fractures. So pair this with regular stretching and mobility, and the risk of growth-related injuries will decrease. And self-esteem. Physical development is the main objective, but we try to educate the players in the gym environment. If they take a liking, that's absolutely brilliant. And if we can also help the lads increase their self-esteem via the gym, then even better as we look to develop them holistically as well. So what is biological age and maturation? Biological age, you may have heard the term a 12-year-old in a 14-year-old's body, or vice versa. This is basically how old an athlete is physically compared to their actual age. It's perfectly normal to be behind or in front of biological age in your peers, and you may just need to be managed with different loading and different exercises in the gym. You get to see a whole range of biological ages throughout one age group. Take, for example, the picture that's posted on the right there. You've got the young lad at the back who's looking at around 6 foot, and there's a little lad at the front of the same age group who's looking at around 5'2". So working with this 13s to 16s age bracket, you get to see a whole spectrum of maturation levels and biological age. And it is vital that regular stretching is completed to stay on top of growth pains to try and reduce the risk of growth-related injuries. So how do growth-related injuries happen? So young athletes are more at risk due to their state of growth and high levels of load at the same time. How this can be managed, we can look at RPE forms if we don't have the use of a GPS unit. So the use of an RPE form: how hard did you work in that session? Out of 10, 10 being absolutely maximal, 1 being not at all, hardly anything. So that's how we can manage load from a personal level as well. Maturity status and maturity offset, so their years from and to their PHV. So that's a factor for picking up growth-related injuries. Tightness of muscles can trigger muscular injuries or tendon-related injuries, and weakness in key areas such as glutes, quads, hamstrings, and calves can also lead to muscular injuries with overcompensation of some movement in weak areas. Sever's disease. Sever's disease is an overload injury caused by repeated traction of the Achilles tendon on the calcaneal growth plate, which causes inflammation in the area. This can cause a large amount of pain by even doing the lightest of exercises, such as generic walking. And this is why it's important to understand pain thresholds and accept that the smallest of things can trigger large levels of discomfort. So it occurs just through the heel bone on the calcaneal growth plate. And again, it's through overload. Treatment of it: RICE, so rest, ice, compression and elevation, load management, and also you can treat it with shoe insoles if you're finding shooting pains at the back of your heel. So when does it usually occur? Around the ages of 10 to 13. It's quite common as well to occur just outside of those, so more towards the 14s as well. To try and prevent this, it's comfortable and supportive footwear, again, regular stretching and ice after activity to try and reduce the swelling. So Osgood-Schlatter's disease happens when the tendon pulls on the growth plate of the shin bone repeatedly. So it's an overuse injury that mostly appears in active teenagers, usually during the peak maturation, so in that PHV period, which is usually between the age of 10 and 15 years old. The repetitive strain and impact results just on the front of the knee, just on the top of the shin bone. And in severe cases, it can cause an avulsion fracture in the same area. Risk factors include poor flexibility of quadriceps and hamstrings, sudden growth spurts, and also gender, so it is more likely in males. Repetitive activities in sport, such as jumping and sprinting, and especially in cricket with fast bowlers, so loading through that braced front leg. And also when batting, when running between the wickets and a lot of heavy deceleration work, this could also trigger Osgood slatters. It happens just on the front of the knee. Treatment, again, rest, elevation, compression and ice, load management, and you can also treat it by strapping just under the front of the knee. Prevention, again, flexibility is absolutely vital with this PHV age group. So stretching of the quads and hamstrings, and also strengthening of the quads and hamstrings as well. This will really help prevention or reducing the risk of injury and picking up Osgood Schlatters disease. And the last one, Sinding-Larsen-Johansson syndrome. So it basically affects the extensor mechanisms in the knee. So when you're trying to kick out, that's the extensor mechanism. So it affects the extensor mechanisms of the knee, and it disturbs the area where the patellar tendon attaches just under the patella, so just under the kneecap. As I mentioned before, this injury occurs during the major growth spurt, so in this PHV period of around 10 to 14. To treat this, exercise modification, lower limb strength, core strength, flexibility exercises, and if it gets too bad, anti-inflammatory drugs such as ibuprofen. Try to stay away from those though, so we look at prevention. So again, lots of stretching, lots of strengthening work to try and reduce the risk of these types of injuries. So the ankle, stiffness is sometimes a positive thing, especially when talking about the ankle. So ankle stiffness correlates to quicker sprint times and a better reactive jump height, and it allows us to build a more explosive cricketer. Make an athlete springy and more reactive in each jump is such a positive thing, especially when bowling and batting. Ankle stability can't be overlooked as well. So making sure all cricketers have a good base of support, and it's really important in all aspects of the game to try and prevent rolling of the ankle and to try and make sure that players have that good base of stability. So the rotator cuff, to maintain a healthy and strong shoulder joint, it is really important to develop that functional strength around the shoulder joint, especially when bowling maximally, throwing maximally, and also when trying to increase bat velocity. Hip stability and hip strength is also a key factor when bowling, as you're putting a lot of stress through those hips, especially when in the delivery stride. Strength in the hips is also vital for quick turning and rotation when batting and fielding. Recovery. So recovery is absolutely massive. So if we do all this training and we don't have time to recover and have our rest days, then all that training will be pointless, as we'll burn out. So we don't adapt by training more, we adapt by recovering from training. That's such a key message. So you need to know when to have your big days and when to have your off days as well to recover from those big days and to get those physiological adaptations. If players are doing too much within the week, then their likeliness of flaring up a growth-related injury increases due to this high load. Allowing players to have these rest days in between training is important so we can recover and be fresh for the next bit of training, and to keep the high standard of physical demand and keep up the intensity throughout the week. Sleep is also needed in order to grow, repair muscles, and it's also vital for physical and brain development. So if we're not having enough sleep, then we're not recovering properly. So sleep is vital in order to recover from these big training sessions and to see these improvements week in, week out. So just a summary. So managing load of players to make sure they aren't overexerting themselves and picking up overload injuries. A lot of strengthening work around the key joints, such as the knee, the ankle, and the hips to withstand this load and impact. Stretching and mobility, can't stress that enough. Stretching and mobility is vital to improve movement patterns and motor control in order to get them used to the growing bodies, to try and reduce the risk of a growth-related injury and to reduce that muscle tightness from the heavy training loads. And this regular stretching will help prevent the tightness and allow players to continue to move more freely and to relieve soreness. And that's the end of this short video. Thank you for watching. If you have any concerns or any questions, please direct them to myself or Sam. I'll be happy to answer those questions. Thank you very much. Please feel free to refer to this video at any time. And thank you for watching.